president of the Military Heritage Institute, and on behalf of the New York State Military Heritage Institute and New York State Military Museum and Veterans Research Center, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you all here today as we inaugurate a special event which is held for the first time here at the museum, and that is acknowledging the Distinguished Veteran of the Year. This museum, as some of you may know, has been established at this location in this historic armory only for about the past 2 years. But the history of the museum and the history of the collection and the heritage and the service of New Yorkers goes back to 1863. The trouble is that the state of New York, notwithstanding a few laws that were on the statutes and collecting dust, never quite managed to have a museum until about 15 years ago when the members of the Institute petitioned the Board of Regents to create a museum. We did so, and then it took about another 12 years until the state finally took this armory and said this will be the permanent home for the New York Military Museum, so that we could go about and present to the public the heritage of all of the men and women who have served throughout the years in the service of our state and of our nation. And so we're very pleased to welcome you here, and I hope when we're finished you take the opportunity to look at the exhibits in the museum. The World War II and World War I exhibits are brand new and were only opened on Veterans Day last November. Now, today, as I said, we're taking the opportunity to inaugurate a program where we will honor the Distinguished Veteran of the Year. And this year, after a nomination and selection process, the Institute decided to bestow this honor on a gentleman who is a veteran of the Second World War, Major Paul Hillman, who was retired from the United States Army. And I have a proclamation which I'm going to give to Major Hillman, but I'd like to read to you what the proclamation says, which will give you a bit of an idea of the service and contribution of this fine veteran and fellow citizen of the state of New York. The proclamation reads, in recognition of Major Paul Hillman, United States Army, retired. From these fortress walls, men and women have marched off in the service of our country and in the defense of our liberty for over 100 years. Now this armory serves as the repository of the heritage of all New Yorkers who served, the perpetuation of which is the mission of this institute. Today we recognize and we inscribe on the permanent record of this institution the deeds and service of one such soldier, Major Paul Hillman, United States Army, retired. Major Hillman entered the service at an age when most men were considered too old to enlist. But one thing about Paul Hillman, he has never let age stand in his way. He was born in 1904. Do the arithmetic. 1904. And in his 102nd year, he is still today possessed of the spirit and the vitality and the determination that has exemplified him throughout his lifetime. Paul was already 38 years of age when his self-taught talents in mechanics led him to be first hired in 1943 by the United States Army to work at Pine Camp, which is now known as Fort Drum. and to teach the soldiers who were training there how to cope with the frozen northern climate and how to keep their equipment running throughout the battles that lay ahead. When the troops of Pine Camp were scheduled for overseas deployment, Paul enlisted, and he then deployed and served with the 4th Armored Division, keeping its ordnance rolling and fighting throughout France and Germany, and through such engagements as the Battle of the Bulge and the Siege of Bastogne. During the course of these campaigns, his can-do attitude and ingenuity once enabled him to find and convert the parts from 13 unused airplane engines to be used in the tanks that were engaged in those battles. In recognition of his skill and his tenacity and his singular contribution to, as the song goes, keeping those caissons rolling along, Major Hillman received a personal letter of commendation from General George Patton for his excellent work in getting the needed equipment to the front in the Battle of the Bulge. Today, it is our privilege to add our letter of recognition for a lifetime of service and of patriotism as we salute and proclaim Major Paul Hillman, a 2006 Distinguished Veteran of the Year. I have and will give to Major Hillman the proclamation that I just read to you. And I'll bring it to you. I'm not done. I also have a certificate for, this is the very first one, Distinguished Veteran of the Year from the New York State Military Heritage Institute, which we proudly will also present to you. And I have just one other little question. Considering your longevity and your vitality, just from one major to another, what kind of vitamins are you taking? Sir, it's my privilege to present to you the proclamation and our Distinguished Veteran of the Year award. Now, we will keep the speeches short, hopefully shorter than mine. There are a few other people who are here who would like to add their regards to this occasion for you. And I would next like to call upon it, and it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. John Egan, who is the president of the Renaissance Corporation. John?
Thank you, Fred. It's just a real honor, Paul, to be here and honoring you. It's ironic that just yesterday I spoke at an event in Albany honoring another great veteran of the greatest generation who soldiered probably alongside you, Paul, in that march from Omaha Beach through France, Belgium, into the Battle of the Bulge as a part of Patton's Third Army. A fellow by the name of Marty Silverman, who I worked for. He passed away 3 months ago, and had such a important part in having this wonderful museum created, and also charged me with the responsibility of carrying out many of his wishes, one of them which was to enlarge the capacity for this museum by acquiring a building next door. I'll never forget this because it was one of those endless projects that never seemed to be brought to fruition. Historic preservation, City of Saratoga rules. I don't want to tell you how much it cost us to remove that building, but it's the last one we'll remove, I can assure you. Marty, like Paul, entered the Army at later in his life. He didn't do it willingly. He was drafted at the age of 33. And he found out early, as all of us did, when you enter the Army, you find out who's in charge, and it's not majors or captains or lieutenants. It's usually sergeants, corporals. Marty was a lawyer at that time. He graduated from law school, he practiced, he was in business, but he was drafted. So he said to the corporal that was placing people for assignment, well, clearly I belong in JAG because I'm a lawyer. And the young fellow looked up at him and said, Silverman, we don't need lawyers, we need infantrymen. You're in the infantry. So Marty was in the infantry, and Paul, I don't know, we owe you guys just a thanks and gratitude for what you did as a part of that generation. And it's wonderful that you're still going, and it's wonderful that you've still got your sense of humor, because there's one common denominator that I've noticed about veterans. Whenever we get together, and especially at places like this, we laugh a lot. We laugh about that crazy Jeep out there that you never could sleep in. We laugh about incidents, and I often wonder why, because there was nothing pleasant about being in the service, at least in my judgment there wasn't. Although I was in the 10th Mountain Division because I could ski, so that to some extent was pleasant. Although, have you ever tried to teach a kid from Alabama how to ski? But I wondered why we do that. And I think I've come to the conclusion it's like during the Civil War when someone asked President Lincoln, how could he keep his sense of humor? And he did have a sense of humor. And he finally said, if I didn't laugh, I'd cry. And I think that's the way it is with veterans. I think so often there's things that we don't want to remember. There's things we don't want to get melancholy about. But I'll tell you, right now, I could cry for what's going on in this country and what's going on with our fellow comrades who are in Iraq and other parts of the world. We veterans are not mad, in my judgment. We have to get mad. We have to be mad at what's going on, how our comrades are being treated, how our veterans are being treated. And we have to stand together again to say, this has got to stop. We cannot send our troops into battle with inferior equipment, without equipment. We have to be better prepared, and we have to remember that that's number one, keeping a strong military. Paul, I don't know how many people are left in the Army that can improvise like you could, but when I hear that our soldiers have had to go into the junkyard to find a piece of steel to reinforce their Humvees, there's something wrong. You would have done it. It was a different war, different time. So it's a great honor, and I don't like to show my, I guess it is anger. Somebody said, well, you know, you always smile and you're having fun. And I said, yeah, but you know, you leave your anger behind in the military sometimes. But now I think it's time we veterans get angry again and said, we're going to protect our veterans. We're going to recognize when they get home that they're entitled to health care, their families are entitled to health care. They've given 2 and 3 years of their life. What are we doing about it? So I use this as an excuse to talk about that, frankly, but it's Paul Hillman's day. Paul, it's been a wonderful experience just meeting you, and I hope that next year when we come back, you'll be here to recognize another distinguished veteran. Okay, thank you, Paul Hillman.
John, thank you very much for your comments. It seems that not only did Mr. Silverman have something in common with our honoree, Major Hillman, both majors. Got a bunch of majors here today. But actually, I guess you also had something in common, because as a member of the 10th Mountain Division, the 10th is now stationed at Fort Drum, which was the original Pine Camp, back when Paul Hillman went there to teach the soldiers how to live and make their equipment work in that frozen North Country. And let me just add this. I can think of no better occasion honoring a veteran of the stature of Major Hillman than to receive the comments that you made, John, in support of our veterans throughout the ages and today particularly, and I think that was appropriate. Thank you. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce, on behalf of a member of the United States, or United States, he would like that, a member of the New York State Assembly, Assemblyman James Tedisco, who has been a longtime supporter and friend of this museum and of the Institute. Unfortunately, the Assemblyman is out of town today, but representing him ably from his staff is Mr. Michael Miller, and I would like to ask Mr. Miller to come up and say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I was just an active duty first lieutenant, so I'm considerably outranked by all the majors here, but that's okay. First of all and foremost, Assembly Minority Leader Jim Tedisco sends his regrets at not being able to be here. I also represent Assemblywoman Teresa Sayward and Assemblyman Pat Casal, who have also drawn up citations to recognize Major Hillman. I'm a bit of a history buff, as it were, and actually one of my relatives is reported talking about his days serving as a navigator in the 8th Air Force during World War II. And I have this dream. Sometime I'm going to be on Jeopardy. It's like, Alex, I'll take World War II military history for 10,000, please, and I would win. I cannot begin to describe the amount of admiration I have for what Major Hillman did. Just to try to express to all of you, because I know about this stuff. When the American Army in particular, when we hit Northern Europe, we quickly discovered that from a qualitative standpoint, our tanks and our armored equipment were unfortunately inferior to what Germany had to oppose us. But what we were able to do was overwhelm them with our numbers. If an M4 Sherman, as you're well aware, sir, if a Sherman was hit and taken out of combat, you guys could, because of your wherewithal and people like you, you could turn it around and get it back into the front line. And the horrible mathematics of warfare, it was, well, 5 Shermans can take on 1 Tiger. But we were able, because of your efforts, sir, we were able to put in 12 or 20. And we won because of what you did. Again, I just know this stuff. At the end of the war, a very disconsolate German Field Marshal, Gerd von Rundstedt, said that you Americans, you won the war not just with rifles, but with wrenches. And that's what you did, sir. And I saw the article in the Times-Union today where you said, well, I wasn't involved in the shooting. Well, you might not have done any shooting, sir, but what you did was give bullets, give adequate equipment to our fighting soldiers who could go off and get the job done. And for every soldier on the front line in World War II, there were about 200 people in back of him supporting him, and that's what you did, and that's why we won, because of efforts like yourself. So, sir, you are worthy of extraordinary distinction. And in comments to kind of jump on to what the Honorable Mr. Egan said regarding veterans. I think our nation just owes such a debt of gratitude, to the World War II generation and to all people who are willing to put on the uniform of this country and serve. And there's this one little phrase that I'm always drawn to. It's actually an inscription on a distant battlefield. It commemorates a distant battlefield in northern India. And the inscription simply admonishes visitors to this site. When you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today. Sir, you gave a lot of your today so we could have the tomorrow that we have here in the United States. And I would like to thank you. And I'm not going to read all the whereases and everything in these citations. I'm simply going to say that you are cited for your dedication, your courage, your bravery, your service to our nation as a soldier and as a citizen. On behalf of a grateful nation, a grateful state, and as a veteran myself, I salute you, Major.
to our representatives in the Assembly. One last veteran who would like to add his comments today to this inaugural event is himself a very special and distinguished veteran, a gentleman who was my predecessor in this position with the Institute and is our President Emeritus and is the individual who led us through those 15 years from chartering to opening of this museum through the wilderness, you might say, and without whose leadership this museum, and I say this in all sincerity, and I'm making him blush a little bit because he's very modest, this museum would not exist without his leadership. He also served our nation in World War II, in the Korean War, in the Vietnam War, and is the recipient of the Purple Heart, and was also a POW and has been a past president of the National POW Association. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Colonel John Edwards.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you very much. Paul, I don't know about you. You know, we had our meeting, the first meeting, when the Arab embargo hit. You recall those days?
Yes.
And we had shortages of propane, gasoline, and so forth. We had all those shortages.
Yeah.
And you did a tremendous job in making sure deliveries are made. But, now, what have you been doing since that time? Now you've got the prices up so high. I can't believe it. Now, do we have to go back out there, you and I, and start all over again? We got the embargo, we've got plenty of fuel, we did a good job there. But now we've got the prices. Well, I think we'll just leave it to the generation that's here now and let them take care of the price. As long as we got the fuel, that's what was our responsibility. Recall, I worked for the state at the time. They had an emergency fuel office, headed that office, so that's how I got to know Paul all so many years. Paul, I have to make another apology. You know, it was mentioned I was in World War II, and I was over in England flying the bombing missions, and it was unfortunate that, the Battle of the Bulge, you were involved in there, you did a tremendous job to get those vehicles and so forth, and we were giving you air support. But I was shot down then, and I just couldn't help you any further then. I was taken a prisoner of war. But you kept up, and you did a tremendous job. I've known you for all these years, I know your background, and I'm really highly honored to be with you today. You deserve that award that you received today for your longevity. I hope that I last that long as a veteran. Paul, thank you for being a great veteran. Thank you. You're an honor. It's an honor to be with you today, and congratulations for everything that you've done in the civilian life and in your military life. You are a true American patriot. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge some people who participated in today's program. The beautiful pipes that were played in the museum when we were ushered into this hall, played by Gordon Peters of the Capital Region Celtic Pipe Band. The honor guard that opened our ceremony was led by Bill Potts of the Saratoga National Cemetery Honor Guard. And Bill and your members of your honor guard, we want to thank you. And the committee that put the program together, from the members of our Board of Trustees, Larry Arnold, Norm Mirsky, our Executive Director Tracy Millis, and our Chairman, John Newman, who we offer a special thanks to for putting this program together today. Now, as we conclude, and when we conclude, there are refreshments for you still in the back, and we hope you'll take a moment to see the museum. As the comment was made about tanks and tank parts, and as Michael pointed out, the tank that essentially helped to win World War II, the Sherman, we have one. It's in the motor pool in the back. Now, I must apologize, it's not entirely on public display, but you can see it through the
fix it, right, sir?
We can't get out there. I don't want anyone to fall and get hurt. But it is right at the fence. You can see it. It is an original, one of the few remaining original, authentic World War II Sherman tanks. Maybe one that might have a few airplane engine parts in it. I don't know. So as we conclude, I would like to ask Major Paul Hillman to stand. His family members are here. I would like to ask them to stand and to once again accept our gratitude. And would you come on up?
My golly, look at the house full of people here. Thank you folks all for coming here to see me, and I appreciate it very much. And you're reading some of my history here in the war. Well, I went to Pine Camp, New York in 1942 for 2 weeks. And you know that damn 2 weeks lasted 12 years altogether. All 2 weeks. And I was at the 4th Armored Division from Pine Camp to the shooting war was over. And I don't like that shooting a bit, you know. Pretty dangerous. But anyway, I was with the 4th Armored from Pine Camp days, and I think I was the only major in the 4th Armored Division that didn't have any military training. I had to read the book myself and find out what was going on, you know. And we had a top general there, and you better know what you were talking about. He didn't ask you to repeat yourself, General John Wood. And he was a good general. A good general. But of course, most everybody knows there, I want to thank you for everything for coming here, up here, and for me, and I appreciate it. And there's a lot of other fellows that did the same as I did, went all over the country and all over to Europe and back. And the ones that I can say to you folks here that bothers me more than anything else, it's the fellows in the service, like you and I was, and they come back here, and what do you think is the biggest problem? Not they're bagged up with a broken arm or leg or shoulder, you know. It's their mind. I've just found out this last 6 months, these thousands of American soldiers were paying taxes on, and they can't do one thing. And I don't know how many people know about this. That's going on right today. They lost their minds during the war, and they have to have, well, they keep them in motels. I found it out 6 months ago. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And how I found it out was up in Watertown. You got a big hospital up there, big motel. And I'm talking with one of the fellows in there, and I was going to get some stuff out of my car, and he couldn't do it. And the girl that's running the place says, oh, I'll go out and get it. Well, what would you people be interested in knowing? These thousands of American ex-soldiers that are unable to do a darn thing. I don't know how many of you people know that. They've got a big motel below Albany. I don't know how many they got in there, but a lot of men. They got a Watertown all over this United States. And I told that to a lot of people because a lot of people just don't know what happened from the after effects of the war. Knew us went over through there, and we got shot at, and we got half shot too, part-time, you know. But anyway, we're lucky to get back home here and to be good citizens, work for our country, and we're awful lucky, I want to say, that we got a first-class United States Army now. And all you have to do is travel around the world, places, and see some of these fellows and what they're doing. And we've got to keep on our government to have a first-class Army. or this country wouldn't last for long. I've been in quite a few countries around the world and see how the people there, and I say, boy, Paul Hillman, you're a lucky guy. You're a United States citizen. And I'm not going to talk anymore, because if I get talking on the Army, I'll be all over Europe. That'd be too long. Yes, it. But I served under George Patton over in Europe, the generals, and I was the only guy, I'll tell you this, in the 4th Armored Division, don't tell anybody that, I didn't have any military training, and I'm a captain and a major, ordered troops all over. And one of the fellows said, there was another major, wouldn't even tell him what in England. He said, you didn't have any military training? And I said, no. Well, he said, how did you get this far? I said, I'm good-looking young fellows, put me right in. See what you're doing. And he'd been through West Point and the other schools, you know. But I was a lucky guy to serve. My job was the 4th Armored Division, and then the United States Army, till the war was over in Europe and all over, was maintenance for the division on the tanks. And I came up with a pretty good idea, and I got a nice letter from the federal government, and I could take one of these Jeeps out here, and you could let me have it for about 10 minutes, and you can drive right across the Hudson River, as long as you don't go over the exhaust pipe. I don't know how many people here know that you can drive Jeep, but you gotta know what to do. One of my big jobs I did was all our hundreds of Jeeps was to get them ready in England for the inflation, go across the English Channel and drive right off the water right up there and keep right on and going. And you can do it any one of yours here if you know what to do. Don't try it without my remedy because you're going to get wet anyway, but you must stop. But with my service in the Army, as I said, no military service, only I had to learn from the soldiers. And I got along pretty good with the privates and the colonels and the generals. You know, everybody's human. And I had good luck in the service, all the way to the United States. I was all over the United States doing all kinds of jobs for the general, different things. Because I was a salesman, you know. And I was a salesman and a major, or major salesman, whatever you call it, you know. But going all through Europe, and being a salesman, helped me all over the countries where the United States Army, a lot of you fellows here have been over there, know the things that go on. There's a lot of things you have to do, and keep peace with everybody in this world. We're getting down here to now, or this afternoon, this noon, almost lunchtime. I appreciate you folks giving me this award. I didn't expect it. I appreciate it. I want to thank you. And you come up Lake George, 2 at a time. I'll take you for a ride in Lake George, or you go swimming once, you know. I'd like to have you visit me up there. And I want to thank you for this, what you've given me. And so I'll turn it over here to the Commander-in-Chief, before he throws me out, you know. It's nice to be here with you. I want to thank you again very much.
Folks, enjoy the refreshments. Thank you for coming.